So we were just going over some like canvassing tips, but I'll, how many of you guys are familiar with New Georgia Project and New Georgia Project Action Fund at all? A little bit? Okay, I'll tell you about what we do. So New Georgia Project, which is our 501c3, okay? New Georgia Project is where we do, it was started in 2013 by Stacey Abrams. And so it was the first of the entities that she founded, and she started it, and that's why I focus on policies, as she used the ACA, so the Affordable Care Act, to get folks to register to vote. That's how it got off the ground. And so over time, and so in 2017, so that was 2013, 2017, New Georgia Project Action Fund was started. That is the 501c4. And that's why I am able to come and talk to you today, because a C3 cannot do anything with a partisan entity. A C4 can, so long as it is informational and I'm not actually going out to do anything with a partisan entity. So I am here today, and my lawyers approved it, that I can come and give like information and ask, questions or what have you, about the very, because our work is aligned. You guys just do it from a partisan perspective, and we do it from a nonpartisan perspective. That's the only difference. So to date, I can let you know. So in 2023, we registered roughly about 48,000 Georgians to vote. We have a goal of this year to register about 50,000 voters. We have already, since January 17th, because we usually kick off our voter registration activity, Martin Luther King Day, we have registered a little over 12,000 Georgians already. And so we are on track, if you will, to hit that 50,000 voter mark before October. So we're very excited about that. What we do is on the C4 side, because that's what I'm talking about today, is that's where we do our engagement and mobilization. So that's essentially what y'all do here. And so that's GoTV is what, everyone talks about. But we do it from a framing that is purely issues based. So when you're a C4, let me explain this. Let's say our budget is on the C4 side, $10 million. So we have $10 million to kind of get out the vote and do whatever organizing efforts that we can to kind of get folks to the polls. On the C4 side, the IRS mandates that we can't spend more than 49% on political work. So if we went to the doors and we were IDing candidates, so if we were saying Stacey Abrams or Joe Biden, that is political, okay? Well, that means that I could only spend, if I have $10 million, I can only spend $4.9 million doing that work. And then the 5.1 million has to be spent, which is called primary purpose work, okay? So those are not political dollars. And so this is where you talk about, like, can there be any type of engagement with the parties? The reason it can't be is because most money that C4 apparatuses like ours get is primary purpose dollars. So it has the donors who give it, they don't want us doing political work with that money, but they do want us mobilizing voters. So we have 8 issue campaigns now. We have one based on Black men, one based on young Georgians just in general. We have one called the Black and Green Agenda, which is on the environment. We have one on healthcare, just in general. We have one on reproductive justice. I'm sorry? Reproductive justice? Yes, on reproductive justice. We also have a campaign, I'm trying to go through, affordable housing. We have one, student loan forgiveness. And the 8th one is eluding me right now, but it will come to me. So we try to hit people. Those are the issues of the heart. And so let me tell you how we get to that. That's not something that we just pull out of, the side of our necks. Everything that we do at NGP and NGPAF is undergirded by data and research. So we poll our voters. We hold focus groups with our voters. So we know how to message and talk with our voters. So I can give an example. When Dobbs came down and effectively ended Roe v. Wade as we know it, a lot of folks, and I call them like the pink pussy hat crew, were on the doors and they're like, abortion, abortion, abortion. Well, baby, that's not a message that sells in the South. Like, you just don't do that. And we went to our voters and we talked to them. And so what we found, particularly with Black voters, is if you're talking about the word abortion, they're not good on that issue at all. And I'm talking about like 49, 50%. They're like, no. But if you just say reproductive justice, if you just say bodily autonomy, the same doggone thing, now you jump up to 70 to 80%. It's how you talk to people. It's what you're saying, right? So the messages that might resonate in Atlanta, and I'm saying all of this is because you might get some messages from the state party, and y'all know, because you live in Glynn, that ain't gonna fly here. You have to do what you know here to win, because you know your community better than others, because there's gonna be lots of consultants, lots of people that come into our state telling us how to talk to our folks, but they don't live here, right? And that's what gets us messed up, okay? And so when we went, so I have a research director. She, after we did all the polling or whatever, she came back and she said, we have to stop saying abortion. It is bad. And so we retooled our messages at the doors, all of our scripts, and we come out, and then people are like, oh yeah, I understand that. I'm on board with that, whatever. And so you get a whole shift. And so again, it's like just trying to find the sweet spot of that messaging. It's a similar thing that we kind of got into. Everybody, I know this doesn't affect y'all specifically, but I'm sure most of you have heard about the whole Cop City issue in Atlanta metro area. We got a lot of flack because New Georgia Project did not jump into the fray on that issue. And we didn't jump into the fray on that issue because there was no message discipline. And there's no message discipline. And I went to try to talk to some of the leadership because I have run statewide ballot campaigns. When I was in North Carolina, I've run campaigns, and I'm like, we haven't done enough to educate the electorate. So we got some money from a funder, and they paid us to kind of go out and do a poll and do a survey. So we went out to the citizenry that would be directly impacted by Cop City, okay? And the people who would live right around it. And we have an N of about 600, I think it's like a little over 600 people. And the results that came back did not surprise me, but it surprised a lot of the folks on our team who really wanted to go hard on the issue. And so the results that came back was 40% of folks who lived right around, and these are all black and brown folks, they wanted the facility. That's 40%. 20% had never heard of it. Another 20%, they hadn't heard, they live right there, had never heard of it. Another 20% said, well, I need more information. And then another 20% said, I do want it. So I'm sorry, 40% didn't want it. And so you had 20% that wanted it, 20% that had never heard of it, and 20% that needed more information. 20 plus 20 plus 20 is what? 60%. So why are we out here trying to collect signatures to get something on a ballot when I'm telling you that the people that would be directly impacted, only 40% of them truly oppose? So what's going to happen when you open it up to Buckhead and to the rest of Atlanta? You're going to do what? Lose. Mm-hmm. And when you lose on the ballot, the next morning on the AJC, the headline above the fold is going to read, the people of Atlanta have spoken. They want Cop City. These are the types of things that we have to be more strategic about. And what I call that is that's our arrows running in the wrong direction. Too often, we employ the same things that folks have been employing on us for generations. And what I mean by that is we are trying to tell people what they should care about instead of going to talk to people and asking them what they care about and then speaking on those issues. It is not up to you guys to tell folks what they should care about. It's not. We may not agree with what they hold important, but that's where you have to, that's the linkage that you make. That's why I talk about that issue of the heart. And so if you come in with an agenda, that's when they turn you off. Because you're not coming to have a dialogue, you're coming to preach and proselytize. And I don't want to hear that myself. And so, like I told, and then we can't in communities like this, and when I say like this, people who are not frequent voters, we cannot rely on ads. Ads do not work. You know why? Because most folks, myself included, pay for streaming services with no ads. I don't see an ad unless somebody tells me about a great ad. Then I will go to YouTube, find the ad, watch it one time, never to see it again. I don't drive to work listening to NPR. I love politics, but that's not what I do. I listen to Spotify. I listen to my own little playlist with no ads. So what I'm saying is, it's so important because you have a whole cadre of the community out there that is complete. They have no idea what's going on in the polity at all, at all. Couldn't tell you a school board member, couldn't tell you a city council person, couldn't tell you nothing. A county commissioner, they know no one. Be hard pressed to tell you who the governor is. Hard, I mean, they would have to think on that thing. But we have to recognize that and meet people where they are. And so if you come in with that framing, right, and you're talking, now you're not judging, because I'm expecting nothing of you. When I go talk to folks, I expect absolutely nothing. And I'm always kind of pleasantly surprised when they do know a little bit about something. And usually it comes in the form of a question because they're unsure. But it's super important when you're having that dialogue for you to have some answers, because they're looking to you as experts. And so that's what we tell each of our team members, because we hire from community. For a lot of folks that we hire, we're hiring folks, this is their first professional job. A lot of them were wage workers, like in fast food industry or service industry or what have you, and so they're super energetic and super excited to be out there talking with folks, because we pay a very good wage. And so they're, at the doors and they want to do a good job, but they may not have the best grasp of the issues either outside of what's on that script. So we take a lot of time having conversations and talking with them so they can be more conversational about the issues. It's hard for somebody who never went to college to talk about student loan forgiveness. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have to recognize that. So, like, these are the types of things we try to kind of get to know. And like, when our canvassers come in, like, we try to organize even within the canvassers and try to find out what's their sweet spot. Like, what do you know about? Were you justice impacted? Because you might be an expert on the criminal justice system, because I'm not. But they know, and so then we're sending them to talk to folks. If we're having an event and it's a bunch of folks who were, formerly incarcerated or whatever, then we know which canvassers we're going to send over there, right? Because that's your folks. You know how to talk to them much better than a Kendra Cottonwood, right? And so you try to kind of put people in situations where they can try to be successful to the extent that you're able. So, that's what we do at NGP. So now we also go out and based upon those issues, and when I talk about, the issues of the heart and connecting with folks, when you're holding events, okay, and you're trying to get people to come and be engaged, I feel like in Georgia, and I moved here in 2016, and it's so different than what I came from in North Carolina. In Georgia, a lot of events are held and we expect people to come to us. No. Like, if you're going to hold an event, if you're going to hold, and you need marginalized voters, go to the hood and hold the event in the hood. Like, I'm just, do it where they are. Why would you make them drive to you? Drive to that makes no sense. I tell my own team that. I'm like, why are we hard pressed? Y'all could have just gotten some hot dogs and right down smack in the hood, and they just walk out the door. You know what I'm saying? Like, be where they are. That's building trust, because you can't, tell people, oh, I want you to participate. I care about your life, and I'm scared to be around where you live. Right? Like, and I'm not saying be foolish, right, when you go there, but I'm just simply saying, but like in daylight, go and have the event or whatever, and then, just leave. But that is welcoming, because like we're big, like, again, my own organization, we're victims of that. Like, when I show up and my team is doing events, we had this great event, y'all. It was wonderful. And they gave away like several gaming systems, like 2 gaming systems that had been donated, and like a Telfar bag or whatever people carry. I don't know, these little luxury bag or something. But I looked at who was there, and I was like, y'all doing this for yourselves. Like, it's just people I all knew. And I'm like, why wouldn't we do this in the community? And they never even considered it. They never even considered it. Because people are like, oh, we need to find a venue. No, you don't. Because if it's a park right there around it, just go right over there, get the permit from the city, get a porta potty if you got to. It's cheap, it's whatever. have a popcorn machine, some face painting or whatever, and talk to folks. Like, it's so cheap. And like, I'm like, we do too much because you're paying rental fees, you're paying this, and then the whole building is empty. Like, no, like, that's why we kind of go to strip clubs. We go where the people are. We're out there because they vote like everybody else votes. And if you sitting around thinking you just gonna, win an election by going to churches, y'all some fools. Like, no, the people are outside. We need to be outside where they are and catching them. Yes, grocery stores are great, but again, if you have some young people that are canvassing, these AAU games, all these parents sitting up in these bleachers on Saturdays, these baseball games, those are the types of places where you catch voters, but we're not there. We're waiting. So when you're knocking on a Saturday morning, they're gone. They're gone. So why not have somebody at the soccer field canvassing when people are walking in with their kids at 10 in the morning? I lived that life for 20 years. And no, I never saw a canvasser out there. But you see a whole sea of Honda Odysseys. That's all I'm saying. Like, we have to go where the voters are. We make it hard on ourselves. It is not hard to get a permit to have a little Glynn Dems, table at a ballpark when folks are coming in. And I guarantee you would hit more people on that Saturday than you do regularly. You would have more success. So I'm encouraging you all to be more creative about how you reach people, because folks are not operating and moving in the ways that they did even 5 years ago. They're not. With the advent of social media, we're just dealing with a different generation. And I always tell people, I'm 46, and I tell folks, I'm like, this generation is used to immediate gratification. And I don't think, and I know my generation and older, I don't think we quite understand that. And what I mean by that is, I know what it's like to have to wait for things. If I watched The Cosby Show on Thursday night or Dallas on Friday night, I had to wait till the next Friday to see it. If you missed it, you were SOL. You had to call somebody. You had to read about it in the TV guide. They don't get that. If they want to watch an entire show that night, they'll watch it, right? If they want a piece of information, if we wanted to get a book and your friend had it, you had to leave a note with the librarian and wait for her to turn it back in. That's waiting. They don't wait. They don't wait for anything. I have 3 children. They do not wait because it's immediate. They think, Mama, I need X. Well, can you get it? Amazon will get it tomorrow. It'll be here on the front porch in the morning. That's how they have been socialized. And so now we need to recalibrate how we engage to accommodate that. So, and I'm saying all of this as a precursor to what I'm about to talk about, and that's the issue of incrementalism. We all know that change in these United States has always and will always be incremental. You are never going to get everything you want at once. You can't. It's just impossible. Our entire system encourages conflict, right? So that things aren't just blown up on a whim, okay? So if that's the case, and we're encouraging people who are accustomed to immediate gratification, and we're telling them when they're talking about a candidate and they don't like how a candidate's moving, and they're, I don't like this person, I'm just going to withdraw from the entire system. But you have to understand why they feel that way in order to be able to adequately combat that behavior. So if you're coming from a perception of, but that's not how the world works, and kind of preachy, that's not you're bucking heads with them, because in their world has always been immediate. They don't have no Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, you have an encyclopedia, a whole set of have a whole state missing. But you knew how to make it happen. They don't do that. So we have to have the requisite conversation to say, yes, you may not like, 20% of what this person does, but that doesn't mean you throw the entire individual out. Because are the policies that this individual or this administration or whatever it is impacting, are you better off here or with the alternative? Like, that's the conversation, which is why the issues are so important. Because if I go into a voting booth and I don't like either person, but I'm focused on my issue, the whole goal is, okay, which of these fools is going to get me closer to what I want? And then when they disappoint me, because I know they will, I'm going to try to go get somebody else and move a little bit closer. Exactly. That's the framing that people understand, and that people are that's more apt to change their behavior and keep them in the process and engaged. Because a lot of times they really don't know how to connect those dots. All they know is they want to see change. I want to see change, and they want to see big change. But I'm like, but you're never going to see big change if you withdraw from the process. Another thing that we talk about, very, softly, and it's not never preachy, is activism is super important. You want people protesting. That's what keeps folks honest. But the time to be an activist is not in the voting booth. Like, there's a time for that. So you can protest, you can scream, you can shout, then you go vote. So that's a little inflection point. And then you can go back out and protest and scream and shout. So we have gotten it mixed up in that we aren't talking to people about the vote is something that you do consistently. And then the activism and the protesting can continue on. But you've got to make a decision in the moment, or else you're going to be stuck with tyranny, or, fascism, like all of these different things. But again, and even throwing out terms like that, they don't care because they don't understand them. They don't understand it. And I'm like, you have to speak to people at a fourth grade level. Yes. Fourth grade. You get above fourth grade, you're doing too much. Which is why I have a very conversational speaking style. I also cuss a lot. I'm trying to keep myself clean for this audience. My mama would not be happy with that. But I do that because I have adopted a way of speaking about very dense topics in a way that's accessible to people. So I am always in the back of my mind, I might have a $20 word that I'm trying to get down to $2, just to be able to get my message across, because you only have a split second, and I don't want to turn people off, right? I used to be a political science professor. So how my mind thinks about, I would never say the word incrementalism. I always talk about things move slowly. You don't ever get everything all at once. You know what I'm saying? Bird in the hand is better than two in the bush. All the little things that my grandmother, I try to infuse those types of colloquialisms into my conversation when I'm talking to voters, because I want them to feel like, one, they know me. They feel like they can trust me, which means whatever message I'm giving them, I'm now a trusted messenger. And these are all the things that you should be trying to get across, in your mind when you're talking to folks. Let them know who you are. Like, if you have a story, and I'm not saying like to pimp poverty or pain points or anything like that, but I talk about my mama, I talk about my brother, anything that if you talk about, when people say, oh, this administration hasn't done anything. And I'm like, well, I am a recipient of the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, right? I had $275,000 in loans just go away. That is, yeah, but that is change you can believe in. I tell you, and so that is a real thing, and so somebody has told me this administration hasn't done anything. I am a real Georgian telling them that no, it has done something, and I'm not rich. I'm not, and then that you'll see them break down a little bit. They're like, oh, well, I didn't know anybody who had gotten any student loan forgiveness. So if you have any stories of like a niece, a nephew, like, don't be afraid to share those types of things, how people have been positively impacted. Like, one of the things we seize upon too is the fact that Georgia doesn't have Medicaid expansion. That is, here we are 11 years after Medicaid expansion came about, and we still don't have it. But people don't know why we don't have it, right? We don't have, and so this is where you talk about a concept of what? Federalism. Because people don't understand federalism. They don't understand that all of this good stuff can exist up here. But if you got somebody here saying it ain't for y'all, then you ain't gonna get it. But we take the time to explain that to people? No, we don't. And I mean, I do. I'll say, well, you don't have Medicaid expansion because you got a trash state legislature and trash governor. Like, that's it. And they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, no. I'm like, when you talk about blue states and red states, and like we on the plantation down here in red states, right? We get nothing. And then you have all the blue states, and you're like, oh, they get everything. You know, they're not worried about any access to any kind of services. They're not worried because of their state governments. We too could be like that. When you talk about these states who are not even, and I think Georgia is one of them now, who's not accepting SNAP benefits for summer food programs for poor children. Yes, let's talk about those types of things. That's why. So when people say they don't care about government, do you care about poor children eating? Then you should care about government, because you have a governor who's saying, no, we're not going to accept those federal benefits. But people don't know that kind of stuff, y'all. Like, we know it. We talk about it. It's in the back of our mind. We might have seen it in the newspaper, seen it on, World News Tonight. Folks ain't watching the news. Like, they're just not, anything that they get is on TikTok or on Instagram or on Facebook. Like, and Facebook is really just for all of us in here, because like, Facebook is old. That's just us. I think I'm the cutoff for Facebook. But then that's Instagram, TikTok. That's where they get this, and in different chat rooms. That's where they get their news. And so, and again, I have a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 16-year-old, and they get nothing from mainstream media, absolutely nothing. And so, like, unless they have to seek it out, they don't even know about. I don't know that. I'm trying to think. My daughter, even when she was in college, she went to college in Boston. Like, I don't think she had a newspaper subscription her entire time. Like, she's a STEM student. Like, she knows nothing except for what I tell her about what's kind of going on, out in the world. Like, she would never have early voted if I hadn't sent her absentee ballot. Like, there's just things that you have to prod younger voters. And so this is in my own house, which is why I know if somebody doesn't have somebody like me in the house, it's not happening. It's just not happening. And so I think we need to take the time to really kind of, before we're just knocking at the door saying, hey, oh my God, election is coming up November 5th. It's so critical for you to get out. It's not critical for them to get out, because guess what? They've been surviving, barely getting by, no matter who's in office. And so we have to understand that too. If you're going to a trailer park and you talking about this election is so critical for you, how is it critical? Because I'm still going to be in this damn trailer park. So y'all got to tell me something else. You see what I'm saying? Like, you got to tell me something else. But I'm going to tell you what you do care about in that trailer park. You care about, let's say you're a man and you have a partner, and let's say she's pregnant. Should she have to drive 50, 70 miles to get to an OBGYN? No, that's not fair. Because they ain't doing that in Atlanta. They're not doing that in Savannah. You see what I'm saying? Like, we need to start talking to people. There's a reason, and I always point this out to people, that Walmart, I know my local Walmart, I don't know about here, is opening up these clinics. I don't think it's right that people should be going to Walmart to get their health care. I don't think that's right. But these rural hospitals are closing. Why? Because we don't have Medicaid expansion. Like, it's just all, so like when you start connecting the dots for people, that's what gets them amped up. Because I don't care if you live in a trailer. I don't care if you live in the hood. If you get sick, you want a good doctor. If your mama gets sick, you want to be able to take her to the hospital and not to a doggone urgent care. These are the types of, so the issues are what are going to resonate with people much more so than who's on that ticket. It's the issue. You had a question.
I just wondering what's going to happen 20 years from now when you and I, are probably me, not you, are not here anymore.
I'll be here. I'll be 66.
The spoon feed.
Like, I'll be 66. Yeah, I got you.
I got 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm like. Don't put that on me. No, I was like, go ahead.
You're not going to be there to not encourage, to basically lead them along the way.
Right, but that's, if I'm leading, eventually they're going to be able to find their way on their own. The point is, well, yes, one can only hope. I know mine are committed. My 3 or 2, I have 2 voters. My husband is one too. I mean, he's one too. I mean, we've been dating since high school, and like he grew up in a family that did not vote. And this is why I just know this kind of stuff. I tell people I married a regular dude from inner city Detroit, and they did not vote at all. His mother's first time voting ever in her life was when Obama ran for president. Like but when we were dating, like when I turned 18, we were in college, and I was like so excited to go register to vote. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to register to vote. I was a political science major, whatever. And then he kind of was like, whatever. And that, but how somebody can get quiet. And so I was like, are you registered to vote? Because I never asked a question. And he was like, no, why would I vote? I was like, this is not going to work. We cannot be together. It was just that quick. I was like, let me go ahead and turn off my emotions because no. But he went to go register to vote just so we could stay together. Like, that's what I'm saying. There's some people, this is not important to them. I always, and I use my husband as a barometer oftentimes, even when Stacey Abrams was running in 2018. My husband is a basketball coach. He's in the athletic environment. And I remember we were sitting up and we were watching one of her commercials came on or something. And he said, I do not want to vote for her. And I was like, I just kind of looked at him. I was like, why? He's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. He's like, I just don't want you. I don't like how she looks. Is that what he said? I said, Mike, your mama looks like Stacey. I'm like, what is it? And now I'm trying to unpack, I'm like, what? And he was like, I just don't like how she looks. I just don't like it at all. And I don't. And he's like, and you need to understand, there's a whole lot of dudes like me that think this way. And I knew he wasn't lying. Right. He wasn't lying. Right. Because I am not like a lot of folks. I am a realist. And perhaps it's because my father is a Trump supporting Republican. I was raised listening to, Rush Limbaugh. So I can distill arguments, on both sides and kind of get to the middle and try to cajole people to my way. And I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. But I know that we live in the real world and we are a superficial society and people like folks that are cute. Period. And so I tell people all the time, I'm like, Gretchen Whitmer, that's your candidate if you want to win something because she looks good. Now, yes, she's intelligent. Yes, she's a governor, but she's also pretty. She'll win. That's just what it is. Society is one big high school to me. It's one big high school. It was. No, I don't. So, but he may not be cute, but he's tall. Because you name me a short man that's ever been president. And that's fine. But that's what I'm saying. That's discriminatory. Ron DeSantis didn't have a chance because he wore heels. I knew that. I was like, he's dead in the water because he wears lifts. We are a superficial society. It didn't matter what that man said. He was too short.
It's amazing that we judge by appearance, but I remember when Bill Clinton ran the first time, and I was at my cousin's house. She said, well, he's the best thing that ever ran in the last so many years. I said, you don't vote when you look good, but anyway.
Yes.
So I started paying attention.
Yes. Yes, they do. And it doesn't even have to be just appearance. Everything. Right. Right. When you go for anything. But you would look at George Bush. People are like, oh, George. I'm like, but people liked him. They liked him. He was just a regular old dude from school that you felt like you could have a beer with, laugh with, whatever. People like that. I'm like, we need some regular folks out here running because guess who does that? The GOP. They put up because they, what they know? I'm going to puppeteer you. I don't care who you are. I just need to get you there, and then I'm going to put the people around you to make you do what I want you to do.
They vote in a lot of criminals.
So do we. Yes, so do we. Yeah. We do. So do we. But the point, we just need to be smarter. We are so worried, I think, progressives are inordinately worried about resumes. Oh, what have you done? How, what are your degrees? Who do you know? No. Who can win? We catch L's out here. We need to put up candidates that can win. What do they look like? What, like, you can, like, if you can do that, because all you need here in Georgia in particular, and I'm saying this as someone who has lived in other states, worked in other states, like, what makes North Carolina and Georgia different is that North Carolina still has progressive constitutional officers. We haven't recognized it here in Georgia, and I really, want to, hit this home. In Georgia, it's going to be super hard for us. And why that's hard is because when that realignment occurred in Georgia in 2006, y'all's elected officials did not leave office. Those folks just switched parties. This is the only state where that happened. I need y'all to understand that. That's what makes Georgia so different. That didn't happen in any other state. So you had a whole governor who used to be a Democrat. Like, it's insane. And so then that does what? It confuses an already ignorant electorate. Because you have an electorate, because what they're saying is, it doesn't matter what letter is behind my name. You know me. You know Nathan Deal. I'm a good dude. Whatever. It doesn't matter that I've switched, right? So people stay with it. Now, I could be voting against your interests the entire time, but you're not paying attention to the votes. You know me. That's what makes it so hard in a lot of these districts to change these state legislators, because all they did was flip their partisan affiliation, and then they just stayed in office. So that's what makes it really hard here. And I'll just say this, people use Georgia as a case study in political science classes because it was the only state where that occurred. And so it's just like when people say, well, why can't Georgia, why is the state government so entrenched? And I'm like, that's why. But it's also too, I think, when the bench was decimated because everybody just flipped their partisan affiliation, there was no bench anymore. Like, people just moved over to the other side and moved the bench over there, right? Well, then now you're like, okay, we've got to win something, but we're trying to put up candidates that either were related to old guard, right? Who are, these young folks don't know anything about those families anymore. And we're thinking, oh, well, that's name recognition. It's not name recognition because they don't know them. Okay. And so then you're talking about, folks. And again, I'm not trying to cast folks in a bad light, but like somebody that's super cerebral, like a Michelle Nunn, she ain't winning nothing statewide in the 2000s. It's boring. Because she's boring. Like, it's Dish Rag, it's Al Gore. It's like it's like Charlie Crist. Like, I can just go down the list and name all of these dud candidates because they're not charismatic. It's nothing about them that people want to affect towards. So if you're looking for candidates here in Glynn County, my suggestion would be to get, like, I always tell people, get that class clown, that fool that was sitting in the back, that stayed in the community, that had a C or a D, but everybody knows them. Everybody likes them. Put a suit on him and run him and watch him win. And watch him win. When I was the executive director of Represent Georgia, I was charged with, and it's still around, and you could reach out to Kimberly Carter if you want any candidate trainings, but we flipped 14 House seats in 2018. I trained 11 of those people by myself because I know how to find a candidate that's going to win. Because you're looking at a former homecoming queen, at a former student council president. Like, I know how to play people. You know what I'm saying? When I was in high school, I was friends with the black folks, the country folks, the stoners. Everybody knew me. Because you just have to know people. And when it comes down to voting, well, hell, I got the most votes. Because everybody knew me. I didn't have just a clique. Right? We're trying to click up. You have to find people to run that are going to cross demographics. Because it doesn't really matter. At people's core, they aren't like, not all, I mean, obviously there's a bunch of assholes out here, but not everybody is, going to discriminate or be bigoted or racist or whatever. They're just looking for somebody that they like. They got a good feeling about. And I just don't think we put enough time into ferreting out folks like that. Those are the type of people we need. And they're usually reluctant to serve. The folks that are out here, bop, 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 stay losing. You got to get the people out of the woodwork that really don't want to run and get them out there. Because those are the ones that can talk to all different types of people. And that's where we'll have some successes. But, come November, who we have on the ballot is who we have on the ballot. And so that's what we have to deal with, right? And so we deal in reality. again, it is this old messaging of trying to tell people, oh, but your forefathers and the civil rights movement. Nobody wants to hear about that anymore. Everybody knows what happened in 1968. Everybody knows, like, we all know that. We have to get a different message. And again, I cannot impress upon you enough that the message from our vantage point is to focus on those issues, is to figure out when you're in conversation with somebody what they care about, and then talk on that. And then connect the dots about how that issue can be affected by their vote. That's it. That's how you create a super voter. That's how you create somebody that's going to turn up for municipal elections. They're going to turn up for county elections. They're going to turn up for the state elections and for federal, because you have shown them how to translate their vote all the way back to the issues of their heart. And those things are unchanging. Any questions?
Yeah. So when you're talking to someone, talking about the issue, and you have facts, then you bring up the candidates or candidate A, does blah blah blah, candidate B.
So when we talk about the candidates, we talk about it in a purely educational manner. That's another thing, because I always tell them, I'm not out here trying to hustle you and shield for you. You are an adult. Again, we're in the power building business, right? So I don't want them to feel like I'm trying to tell them to do anything. I'm trying to give you enough information for you to make an informed decision when you go into the polls based upon what you care about. So I'm not ever trying to cross over or encroach. And so I'll say, there are 2 candidates on the ballot that have a viable chance. Now, there could be a third, because somebody say, well, there's a third party in this. And I'm like, yes, you're absolutely right. I'm not even negative about people, because that is a choice. Let me just say this. It is a choice for somebody to say, I am so disaffected with the options before me that I'm either going to not vote for those options, or I'm going to choose a third option. You have to let people have that. That's their agency as people. That's their autonomy. Like I have in the past, there was a gubernatorial race in North Carolina, and the previous governor had served 1 term, and I thought it was garbage, and so I skipped that race the next election. I just skipped it and went all the way down the ballot with everything else, and that person lost, and I was happy, and I didn't tell anybody, but I knew that I was one of the votes that did not vote for that person. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not sure what I just heard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Talking about young people,
Mhm.
and I have grandchildren
Mhm.
that are
Uh-huh.
so they hear all the
Yes.
same things that your children are
Mhm.
saying. My grandchildren are, and I'm concerned
Mhm.
about the young people, because they will do exactly what you just said. They'll either not vote for anybody,
Mhm.
or they'll pick up a third choice.
Mm-hmm.
And neither one of those 2 are good for this country.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to see my grandchildren
Mhm.
and anybody else's children sit this one out.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
They're protesting across campuses
Mhm.
all over the country.
Yes.
And they have empathy for the people in Gaza,
Mhm.
and they don't like seeing, nobody likes seeing people killed
Mhm.
and ravaged and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of recognizing that they have a duty, a responsibility to act, to vote, to make a choice,
Mm-hmm.
they are instead thinking or talking like, well, I'm just going to sit it out.
So, okay, yeah, I love that you brought that up. So I would not put the framing on a duty to vote. Again, that's a very antiquated model. Like, that's not something that's going to, yeah, no. That's all of us. Yes, that's all of us. We don't have, there's not a duty to vote. All I got to do is, I was raised to stay black and die. Like, I ain't got to do nothing else. So, like, that's what you're going to get, right? And especially if I'm feeling extra contrarian in that moment, right? But what I can do is begin to talk about the issues, right? So you're focusing on what's going on geopolitically is a privilege. That's a privileged issue, because you still got housing, you still got food, you're probably in college, somebody else is supplementing your whole lifestyle. That's a privilege. Yeah, but that's just, that's a privilege. Okay? Yeah. No, I mean, supplement, I mean, I'm taking care of you. That's right. Supplementing the whole lifestyle. You on my cell phone plan, you on it, like you have nothing, right? And that's fine. However, there are people for whom, and this is how I talk to my children, for whom they can't focus on that. That's a single issue voter. Just like I always, when I am talking, just as an aside, because I raised my children from the ages like of kindergarten to 8 years old, we went to a white Southern Baptist church purposefully, because white people put a lot in their children's ministry, much more so than black folks. And I wanted my kids to be indoctrinated in Christianity and enjoy it. So we went to this church. But in that environment, I met a lot of white women who are my friends now, who were single issue voters on abortion. Okay? But let me tell you how I would change their minds. I would say, okay, that's your issue. I would say, so you would step over a black body shot dead in the street to go talk about somebody that ain't even here yet. I can't even think about that. I might be with you on the issue, but all this other bullshit is going on. That's how you have to talk to people. So you're telling me, you name me one person, because I asked a young person this, you name me one Palestinian that has ever in their life thought about what's going on with black folks in America before they put a vote down. Tell me one. You can't, because it doesn't happen. That you're living in la la land. There's all these other things going on here domestically. And you're telling me that, well, genocide, and that's what they'll try to say, because I stay on social filleting folks. Well, genocide trumps everything. Does it? Because I still have to live. It is nothing wrong with me telling folks I care about my issues more. I care about my issues more. I'll get to that when I can. But I got to worry about this first. You take care of home first. That's how I talk. So it's not a duty. I'm sitting there telling you, like, you're discounting all of this for that, and I'm guaranteeing you they would never do the same for you.
Okay, but I can talk to my grandchildren. But what about the other 30?
But these are how we talk.
They don't have anybody.
Because we're at the door. If I'm assuming that y'all are trying to hit these folks at the doors where they are at events or whatever. So then you should be having those conversations in those moments with them. And there's hard conversations. They are hard conversations, but they listen. They do listen. I tell folks that. I'm like, no. I'm like, how well received do you think you would be if you walked your behind or if you were over in Palestine right now? Particularly as a person of color. Because I can tell you already what you're going to be called. Like you're living in it's an idealized frame of thinking. And I'm not trying to tell you it's wrong. I'm telling you it's naive. And there's nothing wrong with it, like pointing that out to someone, because it makes them think. They're going to go home and think about it. Because it's hard, because they want to, like, I can't tell you how, like, when I am in social and on our, in the comments, when we post things, and inevitably, like, if we do post something that might seem a little favorable to President Biden, you'll always get people, talking about Gaza, talking about genocide, whatever. And baby, I go point to point, because I leave it for people to read, because I'm like, no, all of these, you want me, because they're saying nobody supports him. I'm like, well, I'm riding with Biden because he forgave my student loans. I'm like, that's my issue. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you get your issue. I'm not telling you your issue is wrong. I'm not telling you you shouldn't do it. I'm telling you, this is what I'm doing. These are all these other issues that are important. Medicaid expansion, all of these other things that you care about. Like, you protesting Gaza, what is that going to do should you get knocked up and need some type of emergency care for your reproductive health? Nothing. And you live in a state where it's not available. Does that make sense? So I'm not trying to tell you what you're doing, how you're thinking is wrong. I'm telling you there's a different way of thinking about it, but still being able to care about these things. That's right. That's
See,
right.
that's where we got the ball.
Yes.
We have to be knowledgeable enough about these issues.
Yes.
And
Yes.
going back to the thing, as you said, see, I can't say what's good for me
Right.
is good for you.
That's right.
Okay? I need to be able to hear,
Thank
to
you.
listen,
Yes.
to talk,
That's it.
to discuss.
Mhm.
And if you really got it going on,
Mhm.
the goal objective hopefully would be, and I don't want to use the word to persuade
Mhm.
them, but when all is said and done, that's really
Yes.
what we're
Because you're
trying to
opening
do.
their
Because
minds.
we're
Let me tell you something. So let me go back to my little white Southern Baptist girlfriends. I mean, when I tell you they were so entrenched on this abortion issue, but just being in community with me and my family, and then coming over to my house and meeting my friends and talking. Well, they're not pro-abortion. I don't think anyone's pro-abortion, but they're not on that. That pendulum didn't swing that far. But you know what they are on? They're like, well, there should just be maybe some restrictions. You see what I'm saying? So you go from 0 to something because now you see. And you know how you get folks there? Because I talk to them. I'm like, with these restrictions, y'all, I've had 2 miscarriages myself. I have 3 children. I've had 5 pregnancies, had 2 miscarriages, both of which required a DNC. One, because I started hemorrhaging so badly that they had to give me a blood transfusion, and then I got the DNC. With these restrictions now, these hospitals ain't giving no DNCs. My butt would have bled out, waiting on them to make a decision about my health. And I had 3 little children sitting at home. You see what I'm saying? That's what this means now.
But you see, again,
Go ahead.
But again, that's what we are hearing. We are just hearing abortions are wrong.
Right.
Abortions are wrong. Well, anybody with common sense, if you have any type of, well, I better not say that right here, since I don't know everybody in here. But
Well, I say whatever.
well, I started to say, usually I say what I say.
Yeah, I just say what I say because you have a right to have your opinion like anybody else. That's how I feel.
But what I'm getting at is these, when I say exception, there's gonna always be an exception.
That's right. That's right.
So I hope no one in here is in favor of abortion.
Ain't nobody trying to get abortion as well. That's not what we're saying in South Georgia. That's not what we're saying in the South. Now there are people out here that use abortion as birth control, and I'm like, and so we have to acknowledge that too. That's enough. That's what I'm saying. There are going to be extremes on any issue. On any issue, we are trying to get to that messy middle.
Right, and that's where I was going.
Yes, to that messy middle.
Saying there's always that exception.
That's right.
That if your life is in danger,
that's right.
Detrimental to your health, et cetera,
you ought to be able to receive care.
There you be.
I don't think anyone really. I worked in a clinic for 7 years, and I only saw one person from Europe that kind of was abortion. So it's extremely.
Oh, I knew. Well, my little town in Arkansas, I knew several young girls who were using it as birth control in high school. Like that's what I'm saying. I'm telling you, there are people out there for whom that's what they're doing.
Birth control has been in existence for how long?
Since 1960, because my grandmother had, and I know this because my last uncle on my dad's side was born in 1958, and he was the 9th child, and my grandma says had she had access to the birth control, she would have only had 3. Exactly.
Well, couldn't you something about being empathetic too?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of, I don't think there's anybody in here that wants to see, people starving in Gaza.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
But sometimes the empathy, like again, being empathetic and then pivoting to something, people can get offended by that. You know what I'm saying? Because it's like, when someone is framing something in absolutist terms like genocide, and when you have a young person who's, what's the word I'm looking for? When they are trying to debate, their skill set is not necessarily as evolved as ours yet, right? So they operate in extremes where we're talking more in gray, right? because yes, this is egregious. That, like, I had a young woman, and again, and so like I said, I used to be a poli-sci professor, so I'm accustomed to younger students. But she literally told me, she was like, "Oh, well, if you're okay with genocide," and I just said, well, I didn't say I was okay with genocide. I think genocide is, terrible. Or then, she came back. She was like, well, I know if, what did she say? If World War II was happening today, I know what side you would be on. I'm like, do you? Like, because like these, but that's how they hit you. Because they're trying to do what? Evoke emotion. Baby, I don't operate in emotion when I'm having these conversations. I don't. My daddy told me, like I told you, I grew up with a Trump supporting Republican. Emotion does not come into play at all for me. I am trying to figure out how to hit an issue of your heart. That's all I care about. So when I start talking about, well, no, I care about, my daughter who has lupus, having access to health care, being able to, I don't want the Affordable Care Act to go away because I still carry her on my insurance, even though she's working now, because she needs secondary insurance because her medication is expensive. When you start talking and telling your stories like that, so you want me to be focused on a Palestinian child, and yes, this is terrible. Baby, I got my own kid. And I'm not going to apologize for caring about my child's life. Well, then they don't have a retort for that. So don't be afraid to infuse story. You all are people. We all have things going on in our lives. When you're humanizing yourself and when you're engaging in these conversations, now to me, that's deep relational canvassing. That's not me just trying to sell a candidate. I'm coming to you as a fellow citizen. I'm making myself vulnerable to you. I'm telling you why I care about these things. The whole time I've been up here, y'all have learned different pieces about my life, infused in different ways to relay my point. That's canvassing. That's canvassing. Now you feel like you know me a little bit. You see what I'm saying? Like, because you should be just as open and authentic when you're talking to the folks at the doors. Because now you feel like you have a little bit of relationship. You feel some community. We talk about a big tent all the time. It's not a big tent because we don't know anybody. And you only want certain people to show up at different times. Let me give you another example. When I first moved here, I was sitting at the state C3 table, and they were trying to, so it was a whole bunch of nonprofits, and they were trying to figure out, there was a candidate running for an office in Smyrna, Black man, who was a medical professional. I don't want to give him away. He was a medical professional, had a beautiful family, wife, 3 kids, whatever. But when you went to his social media in the past, probably like 2 to 3 years prior, before he ran for office, he belonged to a Kojic church, Church of God in Christ. I don't know if any of y'all know Kojics. Super conservative, worse than a Southern Baptist church. And have a lot of ideas about sexuality and all of these things. And so he was questioning, because he came from this frame of, what is it, love the sinner, hate the sin. And so basically talking about, whether or not somebody, was homosexual and is that of God, and just asking these questions, but not really espousing an opinion. Well, a lot of, folks who were kind of making decisions about the primary and who to back and all this stuff, they were saying, oh, we've got to get rid of him. Now I'm listening, okay? I'm just listening. This is 2016. I'm just sitting in the room because I'm new to the state. And they were like, we're going to back the other candidate, who was a white woman, brilliant, great family, nothing wrong with either one of them. But it was just based upon his previous statements. Fine. And so when they had made their decision, were about to make the decision about, to really kind of devalue his campaign and kind of really go all in on hers, I, just raised my hand a little bit. I said, may I ask a question? And I said, now, do you guys really understand the ramifications about what you're about to do? And they just kind of looked at me. I said, let me tell you something. I said, this is a big state. I said, there's a whole lot of people that think like this candidate right here. I said, and what you're about to tell those people is they ain't got no home with y'all. I said, now they're not going to ever open their mouths and say anything to you. I said, but they ain't going to show up the next time you need them to vote. You can guarantee that. Because you will have sent a message that there's no place for them here with those ideas. I said, if it's a big tent, it's got to be a big tent, even if you don't agree with what somebody is saying over here. And just off of that, just me speaking up in that, They didn't put their finger on the scale and they let the chips fall where they may. Because I'm like, you're going to need those folks later. So I understand that we are moving, language is changing and people are, hypersensitive about things, whatever. Like even when I give my pronouns, y'all, like everything for me, I'm sending a message. So my pronouns are she, her, ma'am. And people say, and they're like, because the ma'am is like thumb in the nose, right? Because it's like a relic or whatever. I'm like, I waited a long time to be called ma'am, and I have a right to be called, right. I have a right to be, and I know to New York, I just got back from DC, and I always put that on my stuff, and they always laugh. And I'm like, I have a right to my culture. I have a right to want to, be presented. And I always tell people, put a handle on my name. Like if you're under, probably 25, it's Miss Kendra. You don't know me like that because I'm from the South, and I have a right to have that. And so that's what I try to tell folks when I'm in Atlanta. I'm like, y'all, like, people aren't all, what goes on in Atlanta, everybody's not going to tolerate. They don't want to be around that. That's why they don't live here. And I'm like, and we need to understand that. That was one of the pitfalls, if I must say, in the 2018 election with the Abrams campaign, because they sent a whole bunch of folks from Atlanta across the state to canvass. And you can't have a transgender individual showing up in no door in South Georgia to do nothing. You can't. It's a turnoff. And we have to speak to that. That's why I tell people, I'm like, you can't force people to adopt your views. You cannot. And you need those people to vote. Like my grandmother used to say, you're trying to carry me too far, too fast. You got to let people come to things incrementally, period. And so that's what at NGP and NGPF, that's the sweet spot of what we do. Like I have a lot of folks on staff who are, gay, who are lesbian, who are transgender, or whatever. And we talk very openly about these issues. We differ on a lot of things but I tell them, and they respect now because of conversation. I'm like, I have a right to have my vantage point on things as well. I'm 46. I'm like, some stuff I just ain't gonna try to learn. I'm not trying to purposefully misgender you. Like I tell people, I don't even call genders. I'm like, baby, what do you want me to call you your name? That way we ain't got no confusion, right? Like I just call you by your name. And so like, those are the types of things, and they respect that because I'm honest about it. Like I'm honest. So some stuff it doesn't come natural to me. I'll sit at events and, everybody, I'll remember after I've introduced myself, everybody else is giving their pronouns. And I'm like, well, shit, I forgot, but that's just, but I make no excuses for it, because if everybody else gets to show up how they show up, I'm gonna show up how I show up. And we all gonna, intersperse and whatever. And that's what sells. So, to be the head of a progressive leaning organization and have that ideology where most of my staff is, I would say, 35 and under, there's lots of tensions that go in the organization, but they respect me because they know I respect them for who they are. And so that's all we do at the doors. That's all we do anywhere. I'm like, y'all show up as your authentic self. And they know that I will fight to the death for them to have the ability to do that. That's what this is about. And so I think when you're talking to folks here in Glynn, if you're showing up and you're sharing story, you're sharing a little piece of yourself, you are going to be able to help those folks take those hard issues into that ballot box on a regular cadence. And that's all we're trying to do, no matter who is on the ticket. That's it. Because let me tell y'all, November is the race, but the real race is in 2026. Because I'm telling y'all right now, we ain't got nothing for Brian Kemp versus Ossoff. Not a doggone thing. Because these folks really, really, really like Brian Kemp. So that right there is what keeps me up at night. Because that young boy ain't got nothing for this man. They have underestimated Brian Kemp every step of the way. And he's going to win, and then he's going to run for president 18 months later. I'm telling y'all, I can see the tea leaves. He is setting himself right on up. He's going to have an exploratory committee. He's going to run for president because he's the only person in this country who went up against Trump and won. So I'm like, he's going to ride that wave. And so we have to figure out now with this election how we're going to get these heart issues if Ossoff is going to have a chance of even being remotely competitive in that race. Yeah. Yes. Because it's going to be a drubbing. If it's what, like, because like when we poll our black men in particular, they really like Brian Kemp. I don't know what we're going to be able to do on that race.
Mrs. Scott, you said that there is going to be a new Georgia project
Yes.
office
Here.
in Glynn
Yes.
that you will work to train us for those.
So, right, if y'all have a volunteer, like, so we have volunteers. And remember, so if people volunteer with NGPAF, you'll learn about all the stuff that we do at NGPAF. And if you want to bring it back here, that's fine. We just cannot have a formal partnership with the party. We cannot, but individuals can.
Have volunteers. We can come to you.
Yes.
In the project that you have.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and then bring that any information back or whatever and we want that to happen. But I'm just saying we cannot have a formal partnership because of IRS regulations.
And you work with the nonpartisan organizations.
Yes. Okay, gotcha. Yes, ma'am.
So you may not be a good idea to be located right next door.
Why?
I'm saying because you said a little thin line between the
But it doesn't matter. I mean, as long as it's not like we just could not rent space from you. Right. We can't do anything like that. But like, no, it doesn't matter about like the proximity or anything like that. And people know, like, you wear different hats. Like I wear a C3 hat, I wear a C4 hat. Like it just depends on which hat. So today I'm here under a C4 hat. It just depends. No, we haven't hired or anything, and we'll be hiring canvassers. And I think we pay. It'll be a good job, I think, for like young folks. Because I think we pay like $21 to $22 an hour to canvass, and so like usually a lot of people sign up.
Well, the problem is, I mean, they were here before, but they hired these young people, and they didn't hold them accountable for what they were doing.
No.
They would pay them, and they weren't going out and knocking on doors.
Right.
Doing anything.
So, which is also why we shut the office down here. So we knew that, and so we closed this office to just because we did not have a good manager in the office, and so now we're retooling the office. That's why we shut. I mean, to be completely transparent, we shut the entire office down in like a week because I was just like, get rid of everybody, and then we'll just kind of let it be stagnant a little bit, and then we'll start anew. And so that's what we're doing. Yeah. No. Yeah, but it was just a toxic culture in the office. So yeah, lots of stuff.
I'd like to thank
Yes.
Kendra for
Thank y'all.
being here.
You're welcome. Yeah, and look us up. NewGeorgiaProject.org is our website, or ngpaf.org, and I can also, if you have it, like I can get y'all a link. My email is just kendra@ngpaf.org if you ever have any questions. And because our staff, I mean, I didn't tell you, but it's like we have 120 full-time staff. It's a big operation. We usually, when we are at our full capacity for canvassers, we usually have about 300 to 400 canvassers around the state. So, I mean, it really is. We have an ability to scale in a way that most nonprofits don't. And that does come as a direct, consequence of us being founded by Stacey Abrams. Nationally, we just get a lot of attention and a lot of resources that come in. And so we're just trying to do a better job of being outside of the 15 county metro area. So it is my hope, and please hold us accountable, that the office that we hold open here in Glynn will be one that is much more productive and one that actually, kind of is hitting the mark and is enhancing the efforts that y'all are doing to reach voters. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you so much.